And hello everybody, I'm Ulrich with UFixItAuto, and today I'm going to be upgrading my front brakes in my 67 Mustang, and I'm actually going to be changing it from a 4-lug setup to a 5-lug setup by changing it to this Wilwood disc brake setup. It's actually a 4-piston brake. Now, I ordered this kit from Amazon, and I'll be sure to link it down in the description if you want to get this same setup for your 67 Mustang. It's actually a very simple install. One thing that's nice is that the spindles on the 67 and 68 Mustangs are going to be actually the same if you have a 6-cylinder or an 8-cylinder, so you don't have to worry about upgrading that. You just have to strip it all the way down to the spindle, and then you should be able to put this on. Now, I actually did have a 4-lug setup. I made the mistake of getting too excited with this, got a 4-lug disc brake setup, and put in a power booster on here. Now the only thing about that is that there just is not that many rim options, as well as I wanted to get the Magnum 500s since I actually am swapping the rear over to a Ford 8.8 for a beefier rear end. And I am just going to need a 5-lug for the setup in front, so that way I can have Magnum 500s all around. But I did end up just purchasing this brand new disc brake setup for no reason. So that kind of sucks, but I'll see if I can just sell that online somewhere. And I'll just go ahead and put the new 5-lug setup in here. The kit comes with new brake rotors. It does come with the wheel bearings, which are right back there, ready to be packed. It also comes with the caliper mounting bracket, comes with the new brake pads, and it also comes with the brake line. If you have a manual drum setup without power brakes, you might want to change your brake master cylinder. And the thing that's nice about it as well is Wilwood also includes this, which my favorite part is this page right here, which includes all the part numbers in case you do need to replace any of this stuff. Any of the brake pads, the brake rotors, anything that you would need is all on here, which is really nice. I usually tend to put this in a folder and keep it for later, so I definitely recommend doing that. But I always love it when they include stuff like that. I did already set it up on the front driver's side just to make sure that there's no surprises. It looks like it's going to be a very straight install, and I'll show you just how I'm going to do it. So my particular brake setup uses a 3/8" Allen key in order to remove the 2 caliper bolts. And then I can use this 10mm wrench in order to remove the brake line. There we go. Make sure I don't lose those 2 crush washers. Put it on, and just so I don't lose this bolt, I'm just going to put it back. And now I should be able to remove the entire brake caliper assembly. Next, it's time to remove the cotter pin, which I'm going to be able to do just by pinching in, just like that. Then use an adjustable wrench, remove the castle nut. And then you should be able to just pull up and out of the way. Looks like the bearing is still on there, as well as the seal. And then the last thing to do is to remove the dust shield and the brake caliper bracket all at once. And to be able to do that, all you have to do is remove these 4 bolts over here, which also have a nut in the back for each one of those 4 bolts. So, with a wrench in the back and an electric ratchet up front, I should be able to loosen all 4 of these bolts. Just remove the 3 small bolts, then the long bolt. Dust shield should come off, and so will the caliper bracket. And the last thing to do for full disassembly is to actually remove this brake line. Now, I would recommend using a flare nut wrench, but seeing as I purposefully did not tighten this all the way, should be able to just loosen it a little bit by here without stripping anything. There we go. And then to remove this tab, I'm just going to use my handy dandy broken screwdriver. Just pry it off, just like that, and then they should be able to just come out. Now here we have all the old stuff. We have the old rotor, we have the old wheel bearing, the old keyed washer, the old dust shield, the bolts, and then the caliper bracket. This is what's going to be replacing it. The only thing that I'm going to be reusing is going to be the old castle nut. This old castle nut seems to be a lot beefier than the other one. But we're going to be starting off with preparing the rotor in order to install. So first I got to take it out of here. and then turn it around because we're going to be putting the wheel bearing in here. If anything, this needs to be a little bit greased up, but the wheel bearing needs to be completely packed with grease. And if you don't know how to do that, I'll show you how to do that. So just get your cheapest latex glove because you're going to be disposing of it since this is a very messy job. You can use a bearing packer tool such as this in order to make the job a little bit easier. You don't have to get this tool. You can actually do it by hand. It just takes a little bit more to be able to do it. I've already packed these bearings, but I'll show you just how to do it. And one of the easiest ways to do it is just to grab some grease, put it in the palm of your hand, and then just force the grease through. And you want to be pushing it through this little insert here. You want complete coverage, so you want it to go as far up as you can get it, and then see if you can get it to go through here. If you wanted to, you can even try to force it through the top here in order to get more through it. The more time that you take, the better the end result. I was on here just watching TV, putting these in there, and I try to do as great a job as I could, and then these should be fully greased and good to go. So I'll grab a little bit of grease, put it on the inside, put the new wheel bearing on there, grab the new seal. I'm going to be careful not to damage the seal, so I'm just going to be using a block of wood and a shaker mallet in order to lightly tap it in until it's flush. And now this rotor is ready to go on. Now normally I would also say to blast this with some brake cleaner, and normally I would do that, but since these are actually going to be sitting for a second, I'm going to leave the anti-rust coating that's on here and then take it off as soon as it's ready to go out on the road. But now it's time to start the assembly process. So the first thing that I'm going to do is make sure that the surface is nice and clean. I used a wire wheel in the past and it's still pretty fresh on there, so considering it's never been out on the road, so I'm just going to use a Scotch-Brite just to make sure it's nice and smooth. I'm not feeling any roughness to it. The grease is also new, but I'm still going to clean it off. First thing to go on is going to be the mounting bracket. I'm going to make sure that this is dented to the back, as well as the caliper is going to be mounting towards the front of the car. Each one of the bolts have a washer. The 3 small bolts go here. The long bolt goes through here. Make sure I add a washer to each bolt. These supposedly do not need thread locker, so I'm not going to be putting thread locker on them where I would normally. Thread each one by hand just to make sure to avoid any cross threading. Sometimes it helps just to hold the nut in the back in place while you screw it in from the front. I'm going to grab an 11mm wrench and just go at the back and then torque each one of these bolts down to 30 foot-pounds. Time to grease this up just a little bit with brand new wheel bearing grease. Not too much. And I can now put on the new brake rotor. Get the front wheel bearing in. Get the keyed washer. Put that on. Then get the spindle nut on. Now there is no torque spec for the spindle castle nut. The trick is that you want it to, first off, not wobble, which it has a little bit of wobble, so I'm going to tighten that, and I want to continue tightening it until there starts to be just a little bit of resistance. Here we go, and then back it off just a little bit, get that sweet spot. You have to feel for this one, and this is turning just the way that I like it. Here we go. And the last thing that I need is going to be the dust cap. Now there's a little bit of controversy. There's a lot of people that grease this up, put a light thin of grease, they pack it full of grease, or they put no grease. Just let me know what you guys do, whether you guys pack this full of grease or not. I've always seen them not greased, so that's what I end up doing. Bend this down a little bit more. See, and these never want to fit the first time. I don't know about you guys, but never ends up working for me. There we go. There we go. That's beautiful. That's what I like to see. And we're going to thread the inlet in. So to do that, got to remove this one sticker that is really stuck for some reason. There we go.
There we go, removing that sticker. Exposes the threads. Okay, this is the adapter for the inlet. There are two different sides to it. There is a side that is flat, and then there's a side that has this little bulge that's sticking out. This is what connects to the brake line, and then this is what connects to the brake caliper. Yeah. So I'm going to grab a little bit of thread sealant, and I'm going to place it just a little bit on there. For those that grew up watching Powerpuff Girls, this looks like the stuff that that one paste eater kid ate in that one episode. There we go. We want to be very careful to avoid getting it into where the brake fluid goes. Wipe off any excess, and then we should be good. Let's see how much we can thread in by hand. Definitely avoid cross threading. There we go. With the 11mm, I'm just going to turn it so that way it's inward. And not anymore, because these can crack, so you have to be very careful of it. And now we have to actually work with spacers or shims in order to get this perfectly aligned in the back. In order to do that, the instructions say to first grab these two bolts, and then these are what the shims look like. They say to add 3 of these. When I did it on the other side, and when I looked at other videos as well, it said that 2 is actually the magic number, and 2 is what worked for me on the driver's side. Now the driver and passenger can vary, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to do 2, measure the gap in between with the feeler gauge, and then test it out. So actually, I'm going to put just a normal washer on first, thread it through, get the shims on there. I found it's easiest to start with 1, get it in by hand, slip the shims onto the bottom one, and keep it in place with your thumb. Then I'm just going to tighten this. And this is just temporary, because what we're going to do is put in the brake pads. There we go. And there's going to be a gap in between here and here. And the goal is to actually get that gap to as close as possible. And it looks like, and one of the easiest ways to tell is to grab a feeler gauge or a credit card or just something that you might have, and just see how much can slip through. See, and then this is very tight. Over here is very loose. So it looks like I'll be adding more shims to this side over here in order to get this to space out more. Each one of these shims is 0.035 of a millimeter. So I'll be adding 1 and then testing it out and then see where we're at. So it turns out that the magic number was 3 for the passenger side. It was 3 shims on both the top and the bottom. And it's not exact, but it's pretty close. You know, I'm able to slip quite a few of the feeler gauges, and they feel pretty much the same on both sides. So I'm going to call that good. Now that I got what I want, I'm just going to be removing the bolts. And with them out, I'm going to be adding orange thread locker, which is a high strength removable thread locker. It recommends red, but I'm going to be using orange. It's going to be my first time doing it, and especially because this car is not running 100%, so I can't test it. So I want to make it easier for me to remove in the future. So I'll insert the shims, get the bolt through. Do the same thing for the bottom bolt. Add some thread locker there. Get the shims on. Then I'm going to torque these bolts down to 40 foot-pounds. There we go. Get this long cotter pin back in. Spread the ends of the cotter pin. Now, on one end of the stainless steel brake line, I'm just going to attach the right fitting. There are 2 different kinds, so you just have to make sure that the right one is in. Okay, we'll tighten that down a little bit more when it's in place. But now I'll go behind the spindle. Attach the brake line here. Don't over tighten. Get the brake line in and tighten it as much as I can by hand. There we go. And with that in place, I can now put this retaining tab on. There we go. Beautiful. Definitely use flare nut wrenches if you've got them. And then as soon as I get my rear axles in, I just need to bleed the brakes and then the process is done. And this is the final product. And that's it, everybody. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you liked the video, just remember to give it a thumbs up. And if you're not a subscriber, please hit that subscribe button if you want to see more content just like this. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments down below. And as always, thank you guys so much for watching.